Hello, my name is Alexis Gregg. I am a student at Oklahoma State University. I am currently doing a project on students with psychiatric disabilities in their pursuit to higher education for my critical writing class. I am interviewing my fiance, Christian Heaton.
Hi, my name's Christian. I live with Alexis. We have 2 kids. They're handful, but they're great. I've gone to college both in person and online in 2 different states. I went in Florida. I went to FSCJ, and I did 1 semester there and had to quit because I couldn't afford it anymore. And we did GMC, Georgia Military, when I was in Valdosta. And again, it just, it's financially difficult. The online classes were really nice.
I currently take classes online. As he said, we do have 2 children. I am diagnosed with depression, and that I feel like heavily set in after having the 2 children. The anxiety, PTSD, and borderline personality disorder. So you're also diagnosed with a few things, and you are currently exploring a revision on one of your diagnoses. Would you like to elaborate?
Yeah, sure. As a child, I was diagnosed with ADHD, and I've tried multiple different medications for that, including some therapy, and I didn't find any of it a very pleasant alternative. I had very bad migraines from the Adderall for a very long time. More recently in my adult life, I had received diagnosis of anxiety, bipolar disorder, manic depressive, and have actually been undergoing some different therapeutic stuff, box breathing, meditation, on top of my medications to try and get a handle on the mood swings and the anxiety. And actually had a doctor suggest we look at the potential of my bipolar disorder actually being a misdiagnosis of early onset schizophrenia.
That's pretty interesting. I had something similar. I was seeing another therapist, and they originally thought that I had bipolar, like you, and I ended up having to see another therapist. No choice on my own. I liked my original therapist. But my new therapist says that was a misdiagnosis and that I actually have borderline personality disorder, and they mirror one another. So what challenges other than financial did you run into when you were going to school, both in person and online? So
there was definitely a different set of issues I ran into between the online and the in-person. The in-person was very troublesome because of the kind of nuclear relationship everybody in the class has to have. Everybody has to move at the same pace. Everybody has to spend the same amount of time on the same topics. It's just with my ADHD, it's very difficult for me to not constantly be doing something. Whether it be just twiddling my fingers or whatever, in a classroom situation, specifically in college, that can be pretty troublesome. You get your work done a little faster than anybody else, and then I have 20 minutes of sitting there and, just trying not to claw my eyes out because I'm not allowed to be on my phone. I can't talk to anybody, can't draw or anything.
And I know sitting still is hard, especially for you.
Yeah, it's not fun. I don't know if it's just a general lack of mindfulness on my part or if it's an actual result of one of the issues, but I have a very hard time remembering deadlines. Very bad at that.
And that is why I have 3 different calendars surrounded around the house. And that doesn't include digital calendars.
Yeah, so that was a big one. And then the anxiety of a classroom situation was very, very difficult for me. They expect you to stand up and give reports in front of everybody. And it's very easy for my brain to move faster than my mouth, and I'll stumble on words sometimes. Sometimes I'll skip entire words in sentences if I'm reading something. And that's always embarrassing. That's always something, it just kind of makes it worse because you get afraid of that happening,
you're
and
just
then
fixated
it's going
on
to
it.
inevitably happen. And then when it does happen, it just gets worse, and it gets to a point where I really dread finishing projects because I know I'm going to have to present them, and that's one of the things I loved about the online courses was that it was much more personalized experience.
Yeah, and I'm in online classes as well, and I find that it's a little easier because you can go at your own pace. I either get it or I don't, and if I don't get it, then I can get the extra help, and I like that. Or I have the ability to email my teachers if I'm having a problem. I can make appointments with them, and it seems weirdly a little bit more personable than it would be in person.
Yeah, for sure.
Now, what do you know about the ADA?
I know anytime I get a new job anywhere, I have to sign an ADA disclaimer. I can either attach that I have a disability or not, and they can't choose to not hire me or fire me or anything like that based on what I disclose to them. I know about that.
Yeah. So the ADA, the Americans with Disabilities Act, defines disability as a mental or physical impairment that substantially limits one or more major life activities, and mental impairments including any mental or psychological disorders. So that would also include emotional and mental illness. Now, wouldn't you consider learning a major life activity?
Yeah, so I kind of feel like that's our purpose, really. Yeah, like we're always supposed to learn new things and grow as people, and more than that, it kind of just seems like a right like an inalienable right that we should have. The pursuit of knowledge is it's like the pursuit of happiness. There's
knowledge is power, and everybody from the time that we're born, we're told, go to school, you need to learn more, you need to learn more.
Yeah, and I don't know. I don't understand the expectation for people to just kind of drift around through life, not really understanding why they, do things they do or why they feel the things they feel. I think it's very strange.
Did you know that while both the ADA and Section 504, you know what Section 504 is, right?
I have no idea.
Okay, sorry. Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act protects citizens from discrimination in businesses in public places like libraries, schools, things like that. So that helps you keep your job, that makes things accessible, like ramps outside of businesses, things like that. Both the ADA and Section 504 are in place to protect students while they're seeking higher education. This includes students with psychiatric disabilities, but these students have sued under the ADA, have a difficult time legally proving that they're disabled due to having psychiatric disability alone because it's insufficient. They're running into issues where they can't prove that it's not a major life activity.
That's interesting. I don't know if I fully understand it because it's pretty easy for a lot of disabilities to, I know it's expensive to get the testing and stuff, but they can measure brain activity.
Exactly.
And do triggered responses. They can do chemical compound analysis in your brain, things like your serotonin, for example, and then see
but
if
it's
there's
almost
insufficiencies.
Yeah.
And at that point, it stops necessarily just being a psychiatric thing, and it does become a physical thing. Disorder. The same way that like a vitamin deficiency or anything like that, like where your body simply doesn't do it.
Yeah. It's they always say take care of your mental health, otherwise your physical health is going to fail. But we live in a world right now where if you can't see it, it's not real. Or you can't see it, it's not there.
I got to tell you, it always baffles me because I know exactly what you're talking about. I hear people say that kind of stuff all the time, and it's just so weird that so many people, they go to church every Sunday and they refuse to have this belief in any kind of mental illness. It's very strange.
Yeah, that is very strange.
Magic Sky Daddy's fine, but low dopamine, that's not real.
So some of the challenges include difficulty with side effects from medication, concentration, maintaining stamina, time pressures, the interaction with others, stigma, and fear. And I feel like stigma and fear would kind of run hand in hand. If there's stigma surrounding the mental illness and there's fear surrounding the students to reach out for the help.
I think the only reason that there's a stigma about mental illness is that there's just too many people who are, massive pieces of that feel like they have to beat everybody else down. And they're like, oh, hey, I'm a perfectly fine person. I'm perfectly regular. I don't have any of this stuff. But I built myself up, so you should be able to do it too,
Yeah, like they burn themselves into the ground just to build themselves up. What part of you did you die? Oh, what part of you did you kill?
Yeah, I don't think that's what I was saying at all, but okay, yeah, we'll go with that. I'm just talking about in the boomer sentimental mentality of, life was hard for me, so it should be for everybody else.
So it should be for everybody else. But they had to kill part of themselves to get to that point.
I don't think so. I think they're just NPCs. I think they're missing any kind of personality. I mean, that's the world we live in. We're just bred to be tools. I think that's the main reason that people with disabilities have an issue is that, society as a whole, and specifically the manipulations of, our government and the people that are in charge, whether it be government figures or extremely rich,
We are way off topic.
No, we're not. We're specifically on topic. We're talking about the issues of people who are disabled. The world just kind of casts you aside if you don't fit the mold that they want because it's like, it's, hey, I needed a wrench and, I got a pocket knife instead. It's not going to work. Just get it out of here.
Well, yeah, we just need to level the playing field a little bit.
I don't think so. I don't think that we need to level the playing field. I think it's kind of missing the point. I think that there needs to be niches that people can fit into.
Well, yeah.
Instead, that's not leveling the playing field. I don't think. I feel like,
it gives everybody the fighting chance. That's what I mean by leveling the playing field. I mean, give everybody that chance. Okay, they were dealt the hands they were dealt, but that can't stop them from completing whatever they need to complete.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, you got Helen Keller. She was deaf and blind.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's definitely a realm, too, where it's like, I don't know if I would want somebody who has no arms doing brain surgery on me.
I mean, that is understandable.
I'm not saying that they should be barred from being able to be brain surgeons. I'm sure there's some way they can, achieve that goal. Just like there's race car drivers that have no arms or no legs, and they do their job. I mean, I don't think that everything should be
black and
anybody.
White.
Yeah, I don't think anybody should be able to just walk in and get a law degree and go be a lawyer.
Yeah. Okay.
I think that once you get to, there's a certain point where that it's just too, I don't know. If there aren't obstacles, then the best doesn't rise through.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. So some of the challenges that I run into with going to college is, well, I'm a stay-at-home mom, and managing my mental health above everything else is a little challenging, and I'm having a little hard time, but we're getting through it. I try to work a week ahead, but that falls short sometimes. Some of the struggles that I have been dealing with recently are just remembering everything with the retention, remembering all of the information that's coming into my brain, and it's finals. So not only am I having to remember everything, I am having to utilize it and put it into exams and make sure that I have retained it. And it's not sticking sometimes. So there's a lot of extra work that goes into making sure that things stick in this brain of mine. So what type of accommodations would you have liked when you were going to in-person school? And then we'll talk about online accommodations.
I don't know about the practicality of the things that I was running.
They have to be reasonable accommodations.
Well, that's kind of the thing that I'm saying is I don't think there really is a reasonable accommodation.
Yeah, there's a gray area surrounding the reasonable.
Yeah, exactly. It's what are they supposed to do? Let me get up and dance and sing around the room whenever I get really antsy. But I think definitely like having a curriculum that isn't so rigid. You know,
Okay, yeah.
I think there's plenty of ways, like in a writing class, for example, you know, maybe they gave you a topic that's just not a topic that you vibe with. You know, maybe it's just not something that works for you.
Yeah.
And I mean, they're going to make the argument, oh, you know, you have to be able to do this kind of stuff. Not really. Not really. You know, you don't see like Stephen King doing submissions to Field and Stream. You know, they're not like, hey, man, you have a week to write a paper on rebuilding a carburetor for a small block Chevy. It's going to go in hot rod next week. You know, there's an area of specialty that he's good at. And he's very, you know, obviously very good. He's very successful. But I mean, it's anybody, you know, like, I wouldn't want the guy who's writing my Chilton's manuals to be writing a sci-fi thriller. You know what I mean?
I would like to write a sci-fi thriller.
So I think that it's really weird in a class that's like writing, for example, or, you know, a language arts style class for them to be like, hey, we're going to fail you because you're terrible at Shakespearean poetry. You're not good at it, so we're going to fail you.
I don't think that's very fair.
Yeah, I think it's wild.
And that brings me to thinking about this project and why I'm doing it. So as I said before, this project is for my critical writing class, and we talk about disabilities. And this is supposed to be a multimodal accessibility. That's the whole point of this, is multimodal accessibility. And how to do so utilizing what we have. So I'm doing a podcast. I've written a blog. I'm going to have a transcript linked. Everything's going to be linked together. And hopefully, if there's anything else I need to fix, I can fix it.
Oh, yeah.
And I kind of liked how we got to pick the topic. The only guideline, I mean, other than the rules, the guidelines, the only main thing was it has to be multimodal accessibility, and I liked that. So I got to pick this topic, and some of the other students picked topics regarding like blind students in school. Mm-hmm. So I found it so interesting, and we just learned about a lot of different things. There's a lot of topics that we've touched in this class that I had no idea about.
Oh yeah,
I did not know anything about the ADA and how it actually is more harmful. The definition is more harmful. Because like I had said it earlier, learning technically is a major life activity.
Mm-hmm. For sure. I mean, it's such a big deal that, you know, they make such a large effort as, you know, the government and whatnot to, you know, boost learning in low-income areas. You know, you see like these outreach programs all the time that are done, you know, based on wealth. It's done on wealth. It's wealth. You know, it's done on the class you live in. It's done on the area you live in. But you don't ever actually see it on a more individual level. Yeah. That's the thing that sucks, is that it's always, hey, you have to fit in one of these molds. There's multiple molds that you can choose from, but you still have to fit into one of them. You know, you're never allowed to be unique. And
that makes life hard. It makes living hard.
Yeah, I think it's crazy too, because, you know, I definitely had multiple teachers throughout all of my education, you know, elementary school, middle school, high school, that were amazing teachers. They were able to, you know, connect with each of us on an individual level. I mean, I'm not saying, you know, that obviously not everybody in the class was able to work with them, but like, you know, I had some amazing, teachers.
I had some amazing teachers. I had a teacher volunteer me for a poetry contest, and I had no idea. And I won. So that wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for that teacher. So, have you personally faced stigma surrounding your mental illness?
Definitely. I mean, I'd say the main issue that I run into is like the stereotypical type person. You know, the Trump worshippers. I know, they have this. It's not so much a stigma, right? It's just that they will fight you about it. You know, it's the no. I'm being serious, because we're talking about this as an issue, and this is one of the. No, I mean, like, it's these people who they have no stake at all in it, but they still have to tell you that you're wrong.
Tell you their 2 cents.
No, it's not even that. They don't give it. It's not about their opinion at all. It's about you being wrong. It's about you being wrong. They have to.
Dead wrong.
They're like, no, listen.
Oh yeah.
Listen to me.
Well, okay. I brought this topic up to somebody, and I actually got that reaction. And they were like,
why do people with psychiatric disabilities want to go to school? Why are they going to school in the first place? They shouldn't be if there's something wrong with their brain.
and it made me take a step back and think, you're talking about your own family member. I have this problem. Anyway, yeah, so as I was saying, they completely disregarded the fact that their own family member has mental disabilities, and not only just one, multiple, and even themselves. They deny that they deny that they themselves have mental illness, and that in itself is so weird to me. They refuse to take the medication. They refuse to even acknowledge the fact that they are mentally ill.
I mean, it's rare, but it is very possible to stumble across a person whose IQ is in the single digits.
Yeah. Well, who knew that I would be coming from a line of people like that?
I mean, I think, honestly, most of us are.
Probably.
It really is an outdated kind of mode of thinking. And I know I run into a lot of people out and about, and at work, I work at a massive company. There's 8 million people who work there, and there's these patterns that you can see. Like, younger people are generally more open. They're not even more open. They're just accepting. Like, they understand.
Yeah.
Younger people, they get it. And then as soon as you hit like a certain age threshold, it's like,
oh, no.
Yeah. All of a sudden, it's just, no, none of that's real.
No, it's not real. You can't see that. It's not real.
Yeah.
Oh, poor you. That's all you get.
Yeah, listen, no.
And then,
what are you talking about? Life's not hard. I paid $1.20 for a gallon of gas when I started driving. What are you talking about?
And then you run into the whole, like, they can't see it, you can't see it, so it must not be real issue.
Yeah, but I've already given you my opinion on that. I think that's just such a... You don't see oxygen. You breathe it, don't you? Like, that's the thing. I don't understand. I'll never understand these people who... They just want to refute science. And every time I hear it just makes me think about, like, Newton's sitting under a tree, and he's just getting pelted in the head by apples. There's a squirrel up there that hates him. And he goes into town, and he's like telling everybody, he's like, hey guys, I thought about it. I'm an actual genius. He was a hermeticist, by the way. We're not going to talk about that.
Did not know that. That sounds interesting.
Yeah, dude, he did a lot of research into the animal tablet. But anyways, yeah, he like goes into town, and he's like tells these people, he's like, oh, gravity. And they're like, no, what are you talking about? That's not fucking real. And then he just starts pelting rocks at them, and they fall. He's like, oh, would you look at that? And I was right. It fell right to the ground. Could you believe that? Your big fat head was in the way, but it still fell. Like, how much evidence do you need of something being real? And like, you just, I don't get it.
Yeah, I mean, like you said before, you can physically see these things on brain scans, which is crazy. Like,
they're able to measure like gluons and with a hadron collider. Okay, that's like the stuff that makes up atoms.
Yeah.
They can show you a mental illness, okay? They can give you a CAT scan. They can do all this bullshit and find it. It's there. It's a physical thing.
It's physically there. And sometimes it's debilitating. A lot of the times it's debilitating.
Yeah. I mean, hell, dude, even something just like chronic IBS can make work specifically a nightmare.
I know that you deal with that.
Yeah, I got to go to the bathroom, 4 or 5, sometimes 6 times a day. I work 10.5-hour shifts, and it sucks because then, it adds up to time that you're not working. And, where I work, they track you numerically. Yeah. And every second that I'm not physically working, they'll call me up and they're like, hey, you spend a lot of time in the bathroom playing on your phone, just texting. And I'm like, no, I mean, look, dude, if you want, I'll get a GoPro and I will strap it to my and I will send you the videos.
My gosh.
All right.
No thanks.
Okay.
I'm sure there's a niche for that, but no, I'm not it. I appreciate that though.
Subscribe to my OnlyFans.
Oh my god. So we talked about the ADA and the definition of disability. We talked about how that was harmful.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. And we talked about the accessibility, how we can make things more... I think you talked about your topics of accessibility, like what you would do to make things accessible.
Well, let me be the interview for a second. What about you? What do you think would make life a little easier for you in the classroom?
I would say in the classroom, maybe flexibility in the course loads, possibly alternatives to meeting degree requirements, depending on what it is. Like you said, you have to stand up and give presentations.
Yeah.
And if I was doing this right now and I was in front of a bunch of people I did not know, it would be a lot harder than it is. I mean, it is so hard. It's hard. I'm sitting here and I know you're listening, and everybody is listening to me right now, and
there's a dog out there just staring at you.
So sorry about that dog. I have a dog sitting, and yeah. Anyway, so some of the accommodations that would be helpful are the flexibility in the workloads, alternatives to the degree requirements. So instead of having to stand up and do a speech, or even additional time to complete assignments. Some other accommodations would be like in the classroom preferred seating. So if you want to sit closer to the door, on chances that you have to like quickly escape the classroom. I feel that way sometimes. Like I have to sit close to the door to get out.
But like everybody wants to sit close to the door just for convenience too. So that's what that kind of thing right there, is an accommodation that I don't know. It's like
I can sit 3 seats away from the door. I'll be fine.
Okay, so you want like handicap parking, but for desks?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, because I want to have frequent breaks, but not super frequent. Like not every 5 minutes, but if. Like you said before, there's a lot of downtime. You've already finished your assignment and there's 20 minutes you have to kill. Let me go take a 5-minute break out in the hall where I can pace the hall instead of having to...
Yeah, for sure. You got a big test going on, go splash some water on your face.
Yeah. Like, let me go to the bathroom for a second. And I understand, like, especially in tests, I don't think that you can get up, but we could have them proctored.
Oh, yeah. If they have proctored drug tests where that they follow you in the bathroom and watch you pee, they can definitely
don't know about being proctored in the bathroom. But I did read something about possibly having proctored tests in the hospital. I don't know how that would have rolled with the hospital that I was at recently, mostly because they were big sticklers on no visitors. But...
Well, it's hard to get COVID over webcam.
Yeah. I mean, you're right, but they didn't even give me access to a computer.
That's true. They did not like you very much.
I can't say they did not like me. I think that rules are rules.
Don't tell me that the system failed you. Yeah. There's no way.
Rules are rules, and they got to abide by the rules. 7-minute showers, cold. It was like in jail.
Oh, geez. Thanks, Obama.
Oh, my God. What did he have to do with that?
It's just something the kids say, I'm hip.
No, you're not hip. You're a dad. Making dad jokes. What else do I have on this? So we talked about how the ADA falls short. We talked about stigma.
Yeah.
Talked about the accommodations. So I think that it would be nice to be able to take an exam alone obviously not alone. You'd have somebody there watching you take the test. But in your own room, free of distractions. Because I know sometimes when I'm taking an exam and I have 20 other people in there, I'm more interested in what everybody else is doing. Every little sound is like deafening.
The hey squirrel thing.
Yeah, and that's me. And I think that being able to examine a room with only one other person or maybe 2 other people, much better.
So I'll tell you, I actually do have a little bit of experience with something like that. When I graduated high school, I had done the automotive program, so I went and took my ASE tests, and they had us sit at cubicles, where we were completely isolated, and then they made us put on noise-canceling headphones, and they had somebody that patrolled and walked around, make sure that we couldn't hear anything or anything like that. And I will tell you that was one of the worst and most uncomfortable testing experiences of my life.
Maybe that's why they don't do it.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it was just I get tinnitus, so I'm just sitting there, and there's just And I just had to deal with that the whole time.
Whole time.
I'm like, oh God, technician A put transmission
told,
fluid in the brake line.
I was always told that anytime you hear a noise like that in your ear, it's your ear hairs falling out and then you're losing that sound. Like you can't hear that sound ever again.
I don't think that's remotely true. I think it's definitely the blood going by your ear.
An old wives' tale, maybe?
I actually don't know. Maybe it's a neurological thing.
Maybe.
Because it comes from loud noises, right?
I don't know.
I go to a lot of concerts.
I don't know anything about that. So we talked about the challenges, loudness. Yes. So some of the one of the biggest challenges is stigma. A lot of people face stigma. And the problem is, in order to even pursue an action against anybody with this, in regards to discrimination, you have to disclose your disabilities. And you have to say, hey, you have to make reasonable accommodations. You can say, hey, I need these. However, once you disclose those diagnosis disabilities to whomever, you're met with whatever stigma. How would you combat that stigma?
Just sue them all.
No, you can't just sue everybody.
No, I'm serious. If we make big enough legal repercussions for them discriminating, then they're just going to have to stop. I mean, that's the whole civil rights thing. They just made it so you can't do it, and then if you did, you just sue them, and it still happens today. Like there was that fellow that was cashing the check, and he got discriminated against because he was a black man cashing the check, and then he sued them, and he got like millions of dollars. Maybe
people aren't suing the right people.
I just don't think that people are suing at all. I think they're just like letting it happen. Oh. And like they don't understand their rights. I think the biggest thing is education.
We don't understand our rights, yeah.
I don't think enough people understand, because like there's always, every time I talk to anybody about it, I'm like, hey, whenever we put the disabilities thing on, people are like, oh, I just didn't put anything down there. Like, no, dude, do it. They can't not hire you for it.
Yeah.
And if you find out that they did not hire you for it, then I mean, you don't have to work anymore. It's a win-win.
Yeah, win-win. Yeah, I understand that, and I feel like that's where a lot of the stigma comes from, is the lack of education, the lack of awareness, the lack of knowledge in general.
The whole concept of the stigma behind it, I think, is just rather silly, honestly, in the modern day, because it's like, like, what, are you scared to talk about it because they're going to not let you work there? I mean, they can't do that.
No, they really can't. And then
if they treat you any different, or they refuse to make accommodation, they can't do that.
And the same could be said about a school.
Yeah. I think schools are different though, right? Because they're government. Most of them are government funded, or
I think so. But I mean, they still have to make the reasonable accommodations per the ADA and the Section 504. Yeah. They do have to make those reasonable accommodations. But again, I just think reasonable accommodations, there's a gray area. So
it's more difficult to make reasonable accommodations for somebody who has a psychological condition, I think, than somebody like, let's say, in a wheelchair, right? You put the ramp on so they can get in the building. You give them longer allowances to get between classes. It's a pretty straightforward thing. It's not really having to change the way that the classroom as a whole is working. Mm-hmm. But whenever it comes to a psychological or a learning thing, if you have somebody with a cognitive disability, who might need you to reiterate something multiple times, it's going to slow down the whole class, and it's going to become an issue because of the way that classes are currently structured. It's so, like I said, it's so nuclear. It's the one person standing up, and there's 30 people that are supposed to be miming and mimicking down below.
Yeah.
And it's just, it's very outdated. I think it's very clandestine.
So how would you combat that? What do you think? Just talking about it, bring more awareness, more knowledge?
I think the first thing is I think more people need to be aware that, hey, you're doing everything that you can, right? Mm-hmm. You're doing everything that you can. You're making a conscious effort. You're setting alarms for yourself. You're, going above and beyond. You're getting, extra people to double check all your work, make sure it's all perfect.
Yeah.
And then still running into the same issues,
Well, another thing is a lot of these topics that we've talked about today have not been re-studied in 20 years. It's, like you said, it's a outdated system right now.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I don't know. The entire education system, I think, is kind of a joke.
Well, yeah.
I don't have any experience in, outside of the U.S., but most of the people I know who do say that it's completely different over there. It's, much more friendly for, like, people who want to learn.
Yeah.
And I think that's the biggest issue here is that they don't really give a shit at all about you learning it. All they care about is, can you remember this stuff so you can regurgitate it on the test?
It's a repetition.
Yeah, they don't. The problem is that they don't teach you stuff in such a way that you understand the implications of it. You know what I mean? Not everything's mathematics, like an equation is an equation and it's going to work the way an equation works. But whenever you start looking at things like sociology, psychology, history, even language arts, it's so abstract that it's, again, Stephen King's not going to be able to write an Ernest Hemingway book and it sound the same way.
Yeah.
So
right.
are you going to fail him and say that he's no good at it because of that? Or you can look at like Miles Davis. Miles Davis is never going to be able to play a Jimi Hendrix guitar solo.
Yeah. But
that doesn't discredit his ability at what he does do. Yeah,
it's just weird that it starts from preschool. They want you to fit this mold. And it's either this and then go to work. Like, that's it.
And like I said, they give you this illusion. They're like, hey, there's like 10 different molds that you can hop in.
But that's not really. There's just one.
No, I mean, like there are, but they're all
coat.
still the same thing. You know, and then it's like
one, but a different color coat. That's all it is. Maybe with an umbrella. But I do appreciate you having done this with me today. I know that you seem to enjoy yourself.
Oh man, yeah, I drove pretty far to get here,
Oh yeah, like the whole 5 steps away from the bed.
Yeah. Hey man.
But thank you again, and I hope everybody has a great day.
Bye.